The fall of an empire. Why do empires fall? Empires decline due to many reasons, including internal and economic struggle and forces outside the empire. Internal struggle includes internal rebellion, such as the mob revolts in Rome or the peasant uprisings in China. Specifically in China, religious political movements that were dissatisfied with the government rebelled during the time of the Han Empire. There were also struggles to reach powerful positions within the empire. In China, court intrigue caused internal fighting between the eunuchs and bureaucrats for the right to influence the emperor, and there were many succession disputes in the Persian Empire. Another example of internal struggle happened when armies that were supposed to be under the control of the state rebelled for their own benefit. This happened in Rome, where the soldiers demanded more money, and if they didn't get it, the armies would get mad and overthrow the emperor to put their own generals in power. In addition, government workers under the emperor, such as the satraps in Persia, the Confucian magnates, or the generals in Rome, started to become more powerful and contest the power of the empire. Economic struggle can also be an important factor in the fall of an empire. This includes overexpansion, which causes over-reliance on slavery and more enemies, and then lack of expansion, which weakened the empire by not providing the slave work and taxes that the previous expansion allowed for. It also includes spending too much money on armies and trade, raising taxes that cause the ordinary worker to lose more of their income, leading to inflation and eventually ruining the economy. Outside forces are also a reason that empires collapsed. When the barbarians around Rome sacked the Western Roman Empire, many historians considered it the fall of the Roman Empire. Many reasons lead to the decline of empires, such as seen in the fall of the Persian, Chinese, and Roman empires.
Now, in the case of the Roman Empire, there are many historical factors that helped lead to the decline and fall of the Western Roman Empire in the late 400s. The fall of the Roman Empire began in the 3rd century with the 3rd century crisis. During this time period, Rome became increasingly in need of money due to a loss of income. There were many factors to the loss of income, one being a lack of expansion. In the past, Rome had heavily relied on conquering new land and taking slaves, wealth, and resources from this new land. However, now that the Romans were in a peaceful state, the lack of conquering led to a shortage of resources and slaves. Disease was also a factor that led to the loss of income, because as more people passed away, there was a loss of tax revenue and human labor. Another issue arose from power-hungry emperors, because as they became more obsessed with their own power and themselves, they became less effective in governing their empire and cared more about carving out power and glory for themselves. Thus, emperors were wasteful and made unwise decisions, such as spending money on luxuries and paying the military to remain on their side. In order to pay the military to remain loyal, the emperor needed a steady income, so this led him to raise taxes and debase coinage, which in the long run added more problems to the economy due to inflation. The growing barbarian threats added to the loss of income, as the army had to be paid and kept in order to keep the barbarians under control and out of Rome.
Also in the 3rd century, some of the aforementioned barbarians managed to infiltrate Roman society, ending sometimes in violence. Soon after, a man named Diocletian became emperor. Beginning with his military reforms, he improved the army by enlarging it and having mobile legions. However, Diocletian enlarged the military by recruiting Germanic tribesmen, or commonly known as barbarians, which would lead into more issues. Overall, the legacy of Diocletian's reforms was that Rome ended up surviving and a dangerous reliance of Germanic tribesmen were present. The dangerous reliance of Germanic tribesmen began to become a noticeably big problem once the Visigoths, a group of barbarians, rebelled as they were not receiving what they were promised after enrollment into the army of the Roman Empire. Thus, in 378, the Battle of Adrianople took place, and the Visigoths rebelled to get what they were promised. In 410, the Visigoths ended up sacking Rome so that they could free enslaved barbarians, and the Visigoths soon moved to Spain to carve power for themselves. Soon after, Romulus Augustulus was killed by Odoacer, a barbarian leader, in 476 AD, and no Roman emperor ended up replacing him. In 480, the last person to have the title emperor passed away. The major issues of Rome having a loss of income, the unwise decisions of the emperors, and the strong dependency on barbarians gradually led to the fall of the Roman Empire.
But did the Roman Empire really decline and fall? For a long time, and how we have said it so far, Rome was considered to have declined and fallen. However, a paradigm soon emerged called late antiquity. This is the view that Rome transformed into a new culture and state. This view was for a time more accepted than the decline and fall view but both paradigms have their values and cons. The decline and fall idea has many merits. For example, as central government dissolved, local landowners and society became split from each other, and it seemed to go back to feudalism from a bureaucratic society. This is partially because the government looked over trade, so as trade started to fall, cities dissipated and local landowners and craftsmen became fragmented. Also, fewer people were literate after the Western Empire dissolved. Only priests, usually Christian, remained literate. Depopulation is great evidence for a fall of Rome. In 5 BC, Rome had between 800,000 and 1 million people. By 800 CE, there were no more than 30,000 people left in Rome. Transformists who support the late antiquity paradigm also have support for their ideas. Their view is that the changes were gradual, so there was no distinct decline or fall. One example of support is that, although the government went away, Christianity took over many of the government's jobs. For this reason, many people's lives did not change. Barbarians that had posed a threat to the empire had always been there. They were not new. There are legitimate reasons for both paradigms, so it is unclear if one is more correct than the other, although we have been referring to it as a fall because we have been focusing on the western half of the Roman Empire. The eastern half of the Roman Empire lived on, and the general consensus is that the fall of the Roman Empire was in 1453, when the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, was sacked. Empires fall for many reasons, such as internal strife, economic struggle, and outside forces. With the Roman Empire, the loss of money, as well as other factors, such as the addition of the barbarians into the army, allowing the barbarians to eventually take over the Western Roman Empire, led to the fall. We consider this the fall of the Roman Empire, in not late antiquity, because the changes that happened were so sudden and different.